When the HOA dug a deep trench around his home, they thought they'd scare him into leaving, neighbors whispered. Kids pointed, and the board smirked, certain they had won. But what they didn't know was that he had hidden cameras. And the moment he pressed play, the entire neighborhood saw the truth that silenced the HOA forever. Marcus Green wasn't the type of man to stir trouble. He'd worked 20 years as an engineer, quietly saving, investing, and dreaming of a home where his family could finally have peace. After losing his wife to cancer, the house became more than just brick and wood. It was the final promise he had made to her. "I'll build a home where Ethan can grow, where we can breathe," he had whispered by her hospital bed. When the day came that he closed on the quiet suburban property, he stood in the driveway with his teenage son Ethan and smiled. For Marcus, it wasn't just a house, it was a symbol of resilience. But for the HOA, it was something else. From day one, Marcus noticed the stares. Curtains fluttering when he walked by, neighbors cutting conversations short when he approached. He brushed it off, choosing to focus on Ethan's excitement, but then came the notes. A yellow slip tucked in his door. "Your car is parked 2 inches outside the driveway." Another slipped into his mailbox. "Your shutters aren't an approved shade of beige." And another, "Your lawn ornaments aren't in compliance." Marcus shook his head. His shutters were beige, his grass was trimmed, his driveway perfectly fine. But the HOA wasn't after perfection, they were after him. At the center of it all was Karen Fletcher, the HOA president, a woman in her late 50s with sharp features, an iron bob haircut, and a voice that could curdle milk. Karen believed in protecting the neighborhood standard. To her, Marcus was an outsider. And outsiders weren't welcome. It didn't stop with letters. One evening, Marcus came home to find a bright orange violation sign hammered into his yard. The supposed crime. His trash bin had been visible from the street for 3 minutes too long. Another time, Ethan was playing basketball in the driveway with friends. Karen drove by, slowed down, rolled down her window and snapped, "This isn't a playground. Take it somewhere else." But the final straw before the trench came one morning when Marcus discovered his mailbox spray-painted with the word, "Leave." He reported it. The HOA claimed it was kids being kids. Marcus knew better. Then came the trench. The roar of machinery woke Marcus at dawn. He stepped outside and froze. Excavators and workers were circling his property, digging a deep trench into the soil. It wrapped around his driveway like a moat, making it impossible to drive his car out. "What the hell are you doing?" Marcus demanded. One of the workers shrugged. "Drainage project." HOA's orders. Marcus's jaw tightened. The HOA hadn't informed him, and there was no drainage problem. Neighbors watched from their porches. Some whispered, some laughed. Karen stood at the edge of the trench, arms crossed, smirk curling her lips. "Maybe this will help with the neighborhood flooding problem," she said sweetly. "Of course, if you find this community too difficult, you could always sell." Marcus clenched his fists. But he didn't shout. He didn't fight. Because unknown to everyone else, his hidden cameras were rolling. Months earlier, Marcus had noticed Karen pacing by his house at night. He'd grown suspicious and installed cameras, disguised as bird feeders, garden lamps, even fake rocks. Now, those cameras captured everything. Karen instructing workers to dig the trench directly around his driveway. Her laughing with board members saying, "He won't last long." Neighbors murmuring about forcing him to sell every cruel word. Every smirk, every action, all in HD. Marcus sat inside that night watching the footage, hands trembling, not with fear but with resolve. The trench didn't just humiliate Marcus, it broke Ethan's heart. He came home from school, shoulders slumped, and said quietly, "Dad, kids are saying we live in a swamp. They said you're too poor to fix it." Marcus's chest ached. He had faced war zones, but nothing hurt like seeing his son ashamed. He knelt down, looked Ethan in the eye and said, "Son, they think they can bury us, but what they don't know is we have the truth. And truth always rises." The HOA summoned Marcus to a meeting. They intended to fine him for obstructing drainage maintenance. It was the final push, to bleed him financially until he sold his home. Marcus showed up quietly. The board sat smug around a long table. Karen tapped her pen. Mr. Green, you failed to comply with multiple community guidelines. Your trench obstruction is a violation. You'll be fined $5,000. Marcus stayed calm. Would you like to see evidence? Karen laughed. Evidence of what? Your non-compliance. Marcus pulled out his laptop. He connected it to the projector. The room hushed as the screen lit up. First clip, Karen directing workers. Deeper. Block the driveway. Let's see how long he lasts. Gasps. Second clip. A board member chuckling. He'll be begging to sell by next month. Murmurs erupted. Final clip. Karen smirking at the trench. Maybe he should have thought twice before moving here. The silence that followed was deafening. Faces flushed. Phones recorded. Karen's smirk collapsed. Marcus closed the laptop. His voice steady. I served my country for 20 years. I fought for freedom. And I won't be chased out of my own home by bullies hiding behind bylaws. Applause broke out. Parents, neighbors, even those who once stayed silent clapped. Karen stood, sputtering. This is taken out of context. But it was too late. The truth was out. The next morning, the story was everywhere. A neighbor had uploaded the footage to social media. Within hours, it went viral. HOA harasses veteran caught on hidden cameras. Local news vans crowded the street. Reporters knocked on Marcus's door. Ethan watched with wide eyes as his father's quiet dignity became the talk of the town. The HOA collapsed under pressure. Karen resigned in disgrace. The trench was filled at no cost to Marcus, and new bylaws were passed to prevent abuse of power. For the first time, Marcus walked his neighborhood without whispers, only nods of respect. The trench had been meant to isolate him, to trap him, to humiliate him. Instead, it became the very evidence that destroyed the HOA's corruption. Marcus didn't fight back with fists or rage. He fought back with patience, evidence, and truth, because sometimes the deepest trench isn't the one dug in the ground, it's the one people dig for themselves with their own cruelty. And when the truth fills it in, they're the ones left buried. So the next time someone tries to bury you in intimidation, remember this story, because sometimes the walls they build around you become the proof that buries them instead. Dead.